What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so I've got a hilarious clip, and I'm going to break it down for you right quick. Okay, so this afternoon, I was listening to my Lawrence O'Donnell video, as I do every single day, and he kept repeating this one line, and I'm like, how many times is this guy going to say this? So at lunch, I went and watched it again, but decided I screen recorded this thing and decided just to take the parts that he repeats. He just keeps repeating himself over and over and over and over again, and it's hilarious when you put it all together. Now, this is what I came up with. Check this out.
Donald Trump is the single worst investigator of anti-Semitism who has ever claimed to be investigating anti-Semitism. Donald Trump currently employs an acting U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C., who he has nominated for Senate confirmation to become the U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C., who himself has happily praised a man who said, quote, Hitler should have finished the job. Federal prosecutors introduced evidence that he had said Hitler should have finished the job. On the man who said Hitler should have finished the job. For the man who said Hitler should have finished the job. That's Donald Trump's team in action. Hitler should have finished the job. The federal prosecutors presented evidence that Timothy Hale said Hitler should have finished the job. Who he had to know had said Hitler should have finished the job. That was part of the sentencing hearing that the man Ed Martin thinks is a hero and should be praised by him and by the onlooking Trump portrait. That man who said Hitler should have finished the job. Of the man who said Hitler should have finished the job. Hitler should have finished the job. Hitler should have finished the job, and that is the quote. Hitler should have finished the job. 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 That was part of the sentencing hearing in a sentence that Ed Martin thinks was unfair.
Yeah, so that was no repeats, by the way. That was all just over about a 6-minute period. He said that statement over and over and over and over and over again. This guy's a freaking lunatic. These people are absolutely psychotic, and I've got some evidence to back up that assertion. As a matter of fact, I've got a news article for you guys today, and the Democrats have chose to die on a hill that they are absolutely going to die on, as a matter of fact. So let's get into this right quick. Federal judge says there is probable cause to hold Trump officials in criminal contempt. Oh my goodness. Here we go, y'all. This one is going to be fun, so buckle up. Chief Judge James Boasberg of the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. said Wednesday that he has given the Trump administration ample opportunity to rectify or explain why it violated his order last month to stop planes flying hundreds of Venezuelan migrants to El Salvador, where they are being held in a notorious prison, and warned that he could soon hold officials in contempt of court. You go ahead and enforce that, my guy. The court ultimately determines that the government's actions on that day demonstrate a willful disregard for its order, sufficient for the court to conclude that probable cause exists to find the government in criminal contempt, Boasberg wrote in the 46-page ruling. The ruling pertained to the clear instructions Boasberg gave administration lawyers last month when he issued a nationwide restraining order in a response to President Donald Trump's invoking of the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 and deployment of 2 deportation flights. Boasberg noted that his ruling stands even though his order last month was vacated by the U.S. Supreme Court, which ruled that the case regarding the deportation flights should have been filed in Texas, where the Venezuelan migrants were flown from, instead of Washington, D.C. So he outright even admits and asserts that his order was vacated. However, he's still going to find the Trump administration in contempt over said order. How much sense does that make, people? Yes, the Supreme Court overturned that, said, yes, Please try to facilitate the return of this man. The Supreme Court knows the Democrats are running with this narrative. As a matter of fact, I was going to cover a totally different story. As a matter of fact, it was of a senator. Check it out. A senator that flew to El Salvador. He demanded to see Kilmar Abrego Garcia, as a matter of fact, and was absolutely denied. Just outright denied. And the reason he was denied is because Democrats are psychotic. These people are getting on the Hill to die for a man that is an MS-13 gang member that was a El Salvadorian national, by the way, in the country illegally. That's who they are defending. I don't get it, folks. I really don't. And they continue to lie and lie and lie and lie about this, saying he's an American citizen, he's a Maryland father, and all this other nonsense. It's all BS. He was not, I repeat, not in the country legally. He was in the country illegally. He did have deportation orders. The judge put a stay on those deportation orders because of unsubstantiated claim of threats of persecution, even though, Democrats, they lie and say there was a definite fear of persecution from gangs in El Salvador, but they fail to mention blatantly that, hang on just a second, my guys, Bukele cleaned up El Salvador as a matter of fact. So the gang that the very threats were coming from no longer exist. At all. No longer exist. Bukele cleaned those gangs up. That gang does not exist anymore unless you're talking about inside of a prison. So what I don't get why they are dying on this hill. All because of a Biden holdover said, yeah, we made a mistake. As a matter of fact, come to find out, no, we didn't make a mistake, because as we found out, Bukele cleaned up. That gang doesn't exist on the streets of El Salvador any longer. So that threat, that stay for that deportation order was null and void, folks. Voided out completely. Plus, when you throw on top of that the Alien Enemies Act, I'm sorry. Sorry. This guy was not an asylum seeker. He was not in the country legally. He was in the country illegally. Right? We also know, as we discovered and discussed on this channel previously, that after he was slated for deportation, he decides to go off to Maryland and create a family, trying to anchor himself to this country. It is all insane around this, and Democrats are just blatantly lying through their freaking teeth about this, and they have chosen this hill to die on, and they are absolutely going to die on this hill, because it's too late, folks. It absolutely is too late. I think Donald Trump absolutely should defy any order that tries to order him to bring this guy back. Defy that order. You want to find the administration in contempt of court? Go right ahead. Good luck enforcing that contempt. You want to go ahead and sanction the U.S. government? Go right ahead. Good luck enforcing your sanctions. This is getting to the point to where Democrats are creating this crisis of constitutionality in this country, where these activist judges think that they can override the President of the United States and force the administration to bend to their will based upon a perception that is skewed. Sorry. I meant to say skewed. Bent. It's so delusional. They are taking the corporate press narrative. Oh, it's a Maryland father. Lies. Oh, he's in the country legally. Lies. He wasn't supposed to be deported. Lies, lies, lies. All of it's lies. Just about everything is lies. And these people think they're on the right side of history? Right. That court's later determination that the temporary restraining order suffered from a legal defect. Is that so? However, does not excuse the government's violations, said Boasberg. If a party chooses to disobey the order rather than wait for it to be reversed through the judicial process, such disobedience is punishable as contempt. Once again, folks, good luck punishing them actually, because you're going to find that Donald Trump is in charge of your enforcement arm. And he can just tell them to ignore the courts. Is this what Democrats want? They absolutely do, because they are trying every single thing they can to put Donald Trump on the wrong side of history. And once again, like I said, they are on the wrong side of history, because when you break all this down, go to Reddit, by the way. Holy crap, that is an ish hole of lunatics. These people are insane. Absolutely insane. It's funny. It really is. These people, they're so deluded with this nonsense corporate press narrative garbage. They just believe anything and everything. They think that Donald Trump is going around scooping American citizens up off the street and sending them to El Salvador. It is insane. Alien Enemies Act, which he invokes to fast-track the expulsion of 238 migrants accused of being in the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, despite a lack of criminal history or convictions for many of them, has unfolded alongside another case in the Washington, D.C. court, in which Judge Paula Zinnes has demanded the administration work to free one migrant mistakenly sent to El Salvador's terrorism confinement center. You love how they say that. Oh, he's deporting 238 Tren de Aragua despite a lack of, what did they say? Lack of criminal history or convictions for many of them. Hang on just a second. Do you really think that deportation hinges on if they have a criminal history within the United States? Do you think that matters? This is a non sequitur, folks. That is what that is. It's a completely illogical statement adding to the argument that they're trying to make here. Because it doesn't matter. No, you come into the country illegally, you just broke the law. And all of these people that are being deported are criminal aliens. Sure, you could call out, if you wanted to, you could call out sporadic individual cases of the State Department denying a visa, or revoking a visa, I should say. Like with that guy, I forget his name, Muhammad Khalil or some crap like that. I forget his name right off. Sorry about that. But, you have an instance of that. But he's not an American citizen either. He's here on a temporary visa, as a matter of fact. So, do we really think this? Do we really think that, you can't get deported if you haven't broke the law? Well, they did break the law, as a matter of fact, but they say, that's not a criminal defense. That's not a criminal offense. Actually, it is. And you know what the punishment for that is? It's deportation, as a matter of fact. These people are hilarious, y'all. Zinnes said Tuesday she was opening an inquiry into the Department of Justice's refusal to comply with a unanimous Supreme Court ruling that ordered the return of Kilmore Abrego Garcia. Lies. They didn't order the return of this man. The Supreme Court knows. Think about this for a second. Just think about the logic of that. That's also a non sequitur. It just makes no logical sense whatsoever, because the Supreme Court cannot order the return of somebody that is not within the custody of the United States. In other words, they cannot order El Salvador to release a Salvadorian national to the United States. The Supreme Court knows that. They said, the Supreme Court basically said to facilitate his return. And what does that mean? Facilitate. They use that specifically. That means upon his release from El Salvadorian custody, that we are to provide him a ride to the United States. And like I said, this is the hill that Democrats want to die on. And what is the reasoning behind all this? Why are all these Democrats flying to El Salvador to go see this guy, this Salvadorian national who's sitting in a Salvadorian prison. Why are they doing that? Makes you wonder, don't it? All of it, folks. All of it is to attempt to make Donald Trump look bad. However, they don't have any facts on their side to do so, but they are trying. Give them credit for the effort, if you will. Supreme Court ruling that ordered the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland resident who has denied allegations that he is a member of the gang MS-13 and who had court-ordered protection from being deported to El Salvador. Now, we already went over that, but you love how they say that. They just come out and say that. If you don't know anything about this case, that is like somebody saying, here, let me introduce you to this person. He's not an MS-13 gang member. That's what that speaks to me, because they didn't say anything previously about Kilmar Abrego Garcia being an MS-13 gang member, right? They just said, oh, well, he denies those allegations. What allegations? These people don't realize their own cognitive dissonance, I guess. Oh, Lord. In Boasberg's ruling, the judge warned that the Trump administration can purge its contempt by affording due process to these Venezuelan migrants it sent to El Salvador. What does that mean, folks? This is what this psychotic judge wants to do. Basically, is give these Venezuelan migrants that are in the custody of El Salvador United States due process. Yes, if Donald Trump affords them due process. How is he going to do that? This is how psychotic these people are. They think that they can tell El Salvador to return all these people so they can have their due process and get sent right back. That's the hill that they're wanting to die on. They want these people returned so they can go through an immigration judge to say they're not American citizens so they can be slated for deportation and get deported again. This is the most psychotic I've ever seen the Democratic Party. That's what all of this is over, folks. All of it is over. Due process. For them to just say, yeah, you're not an American citizen, you get deported. It is psychotic. And if they don't, then we're heading toward a special prosecutor for criminal contempt prosecutions, said Aaron Reichland Melnick of the American Immigration Council. Being found in criminal contempt could result in fines or prison time for Trump administration officials. Once again, folks, like I said, we've seen your contempt charges. Now enforce it, please. That's what I'm saying to all of this, because these judges are absolutely psychotic. They have no authority under the Constitution to do anything that they're doing as a matter of constitutionality. The Constitution does not tolerate willful disobedience of judicial orders, especially by officials of a coordinate branch who have sworn an oath to uphold it, wrote Boasberg. Now, think about everything in totality, what we've been talking about. Judges trying to give out orders that fall well outside their authority to do so. Now, that would mean that these orders are unlawful. And you do not have to listen to an unlawful order from a judge. Sorry. That is how reality is, folks. He cited the 1795 ruling in United States versus Peters, adding, to permit such officials to freely annul the judgments of the courts of the United States would not just destroy the rights acquired under those judgments, it would make a solemn mockery of the Constitution itself. So fatal a result must be deprecated by all. That is the most hilarious nonsense I think I've ever heard in my life. Sure, that would be valid under normal circumstances, but once again, like I said, these are not normal circumstances, folks. We have a judicial coup currently unfolding within the United States right now, so I would love to see these people enforce any of this. And like I said, y'all, before Trump came into office, I said if he starts violating court orders, that I would be yelling and screaming and gnashing my teeth in opposition to it. I would criticize the government. But, you got to look at the court orders first. And once again, what do we do? Like, check this out. What if one of these judges orders Donald Trump to take SEAL Team 6 and go to this prison, the CECOT prison, and rescue Kilmar Abrego Garcia? That's essentially what they want. I mean, what would you do about that? What would you have the Trump administration do? Do you think that's a lawful order? Of course it's not. That would be a declaration of war against El Salvador. Now, not that we're afraid to do so, but why would we do so in the first place? That's why I'm so kind of iffy on this. Like, this is really the hill that Democrats want to die on. Yes, it absolutely is. And it's absolutely absurd that these judges think that they hold power over the executive branch of some sort of enforcement on this. Really? Go ahead, find him in contempt. Get all the special prosecutors you want. Because who do the special prosecutors work for? Oh, that's right. The federal government. That is right. Once again, folks, if these judges want to continue to give out unlawful orders, I'm right there. I would, as a matter of fact, encourage the Trump administration to say no. Absolutely. Now, if it's a lawful order, go right ahead. Definitely tell the Trump administration. Like when these judges tell, DOJ to stop doing what it's doing. Hey, I might think that's a bad ruling. But hey, if they got to stop, they got to stop. That's it. If it, come to find out they're doing something unlawful, which I don't see how it is, but I'm not with them doing whatever they're doing, so I have no idea. You got to stop. You got to listen to a lawful order from a judge. Sorry, that's just how it works. I mean, that's just how it goes. But when these judges are trying to rule on behalf of the entire country, well, hang on there, judge. We want this guy to be deported, as a matter of fact. We don't want these criminal aliens in our country. That is why we voted for Donald Trump. You cannot just go and order Donald Trump to return criminal aliens that came into the country illegally. Right? Think about that for a second. None of these judges said anything when Joe Biden was allowing these people to pour into the country, actually violating federal law. Nothing. No nationwide injunctions, no contempt of court, none of that. Had no problem with it. That's something else I don't get. Donald Trump decides that he's going to revoke the legal protected status from, 500,000 migrants that are in this country, criminal aliens that are in this country. I should say that Joe Biden unilaterally gave them legal protected status. Nobody tried to stop him. There were no nationwide injunctions to stop that. Donald Trump says, okay, that was done by executive order. I'm going to undo that by executive order. And all of a sudden, nationwide injunction. Fascinating that is. Very, very fascinating that is. And then when you look at all of the injunctions that have been placed upon the Trump administration for trying to carry out its constitutional duties, yeah, we have a problem going on, right? The mainstream news, once again, they keep talking about, there's a constitutional crisis in this country. But once again, every accusation is a confession with these people because they are the ones imposing the constitutional crisis. The judges, these activist judges, trying to stop the Trump administration from carrying out its lawful duties, are the ones that are breaking the law here by trying to force the administration to conduct foreign relations. Force the administration to conduct foreign relations, because that's what it is now. It has nothing to do with deportations anymore. It's foreign relations, because once again, these people are in the custody of another country. And there's nothing the Trump administration can do about that. I'm sorry. By the way, he doesn't want to do anything about that. We intentionally deported these people on purpose. These are not, once again, not American citizens. The Trump administration is not going to deport American citizens. I know you might be thinking, well, he was talking about putting criminals, the worst of the worst, in the El Salvador prison. That's a little bit different, but that's not going to happen, folks. That's just Donald Trump messing with everybody once again. That's not going to happen because he's never actually signed an executive order to do so. He's just said, yeah, I'd like to do that. That's what he said every time. I'd like to do that. Wouldn't we all like to do that? I mean, why do we need to keep people in a prison here? I'm just saying. That's not going to happen, though. But, that doesn't stop the corporate press from fear-mongering about it. It's all, once again, it blows my mind. And as you know, once I say that, video's coming to an end, folks. But it really does. It really, really does. It blows my mind. The lengths that the Democrats are willing to go to die on the hill of El Salvador, I guess, of one man. One guy that was in the country illegally, by the way, and was probably an MS-13 gang member. Right? That's who the Democrats are standing up for. The criminals these days. As we all know, we've been seeing this unfold over a very, very long period of time. Democrats stand up for everybody else in the world. They do not care about you at all. Not in the least. That is not to mention, or is not to say, that Republicans care about you either. But at least Republicans pretend to care. Don't know if there's any difference in that. They might be mutually exclusive. You never know. But y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.